Congrats on getting beyond $1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of Easy Pay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building. And you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond $1 million. My guest today thinks that you should have more fun in your business. And it's hard to dispute after listening to her path and how she runs her business. Christie Herold runs one of the largest adult recreational sports leagues on the planet. And she built this by rolling up 11 different sport and social clubs and standardizing things, amongst other tips, which we'll dig into in this episode. She has a book, It Pays to Play, How Play Improves Business. And she has some great lessons for me in particular, as a sort of hard-driving, A-type, disciplined, rule-focused person. Great tactical lessons for how to integrate more fun into your business. And she will argue that it's not only not going to compromise the growth of the business, but also going to actually help you grow the business and create a better culture. Without further ado, here's Kristi Herold. I appreciate you carving out some time.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Brad.
Absolutely. So you like to have fun, and I met you originally walking up to a plane that we were getting ready to jump out of, only later to find out that we have lots of other connections in life. But it was a great way to kick off the relationship.
Absolutely. I'm actually kind of glad we didn't know about those other connections before we jumped out of that plane together. It made it more fun.
You know, that's a fundamental belief that I have. And I actually, when I'm recording for Beyond $1 Million, I'm perpetually torn with how much homework I do so that I'm prepared against leaving surprise and the opportunity to discover things through the relationship and the conversation.
Yeah, I can see that because that was neat how that unfolded for us, for sure.
It was. And I also think that getting to know people, it kind of goes back to a fundamental framework for me of when somebody says, what do you do? The last thing I generally want from them is like what their 9 to 5 is. Right? I really want to know who people are and how they spend their time. And I think that if you come into it with a preconceived notion, very often you are restricting your ability to actually get to know those things.
Yeah, totally agree.
So to that end, why don't we hear a little bit of the history of your life? And I'll set a little bit of frame because you are, I think, known for and do a good job with getting those things to intersect. Right. So you wrote a book called It Pays to Play, How Play Improves Business Culture. And that came out of many, many years of running sport and social clubs. So why don't you back out and give me kind of the origin and business story of Kristi Herold?
Sure. So entrepreneurial family. I know you know my brother, Cameron. We, raised entrepreneurial family. Our other brother, Todd, also runs his own business. After university, I had moved to Toronto from growing up in a small town and wanted to start a business that would be fun. Having done a number of different businesses through high school and university, I knew I wanted to do something that would be fun, but also just start to create a lifestyle for myself. I didn't want to work for anyone else. And I'd heard about sport and social clubs in the US. This is in the mid 90s. And so I thought I'm going to try and start this in Toronto. Started the Toronto Sport and Social Club. And in that first year, had about 250 teams. Now, this is in the day, we didn't have websites. There was no digital marketing. This is in the day where, I literally spent 4 months on the phone calling everyone in my address book and telling them my idea and saying, do you want to get a newsletter about this? And then asking them to fax me their address books so I could call everyone in their address books. And I built a database of about 800 people that way. Mailed out a newsletter, which I couldn't afford stamps for. Luckily, my boyfriend at the time was a semi-pro cyclist, so he delivered 400 newsletters by bicycle, and I could afford 400 stamps to send out the other ones. People literally registered, by faxing in their registration form and mailing me a check. That's how it was done in the 90s, in the mid 90s. So that first season, 250 teams. And then over 10 years, really was focused on growing, but also had 3 kids during that time, had built a great team under me. And so then from 2006 to 2016, I really took a step back. from the business, pursued some passion projects, was really involved in my kids' lives, and it just was quite part-time in the business. And I had intentionally wanted a local business because I wanted a lifestyle business, which is what my dad had. And I had that. I had a great lifestyle, was making good money and having fun doing what I was doing, but could still have my life with my kids and be very present. 2016, by that point, we're now 20 years old. I was bored. I needed new challenges, was thinking of selling the business, decided I was going to go all in on scaling the business through acquisitions. And so from 2016 to just before the pandemic, did about 9 acquisitions to really grow the business. So I was buying clubs in other cities, and then during the pandemic, Canadian mandates. We were in about 11 cities in Canada and Michigan, and the mandates shut us down pretty hard, lost about 18 months of revenue during that period. So about 2 months into that, yeah, it was gut wrenching, painful.
Well, let me pause on this because tell me your brother's comment, but I want to pause before we get into the first chapter or the next chapter, because that part, the acquisitions, I think there are a million lessons within it. But what was your brother's commentary?
Well, as I was like feeling sorry for myself for, in March and April of 2020 and crying and thinking I should be celebrating 25 years of having grown this great business. Instead, I don't want to get out of bed. I'm depressed and thinking, how are we going to survive this? And Cam is saying to me, you need to go online. All the health clubs and gyms, they're doing all their programs online. You have to go online. And I'm like, you can't play soccer over your phone. Like, you can't play beach volleyball through your computer like we do in person. It's what we do.
Right.
But I realized, we had to find a way. So we looked at what's our core purpose. And our core purpose has always been connecting people through play. And when I talked about that passion project I did like for 10 years between 2006 and 2016, I started a community musical theater troupe to get adults playing on stage, singing, dancing, acting, all for charity. We've raised over $500,000 for charity. That's turned into 3 different musical theater troupes. So I've realized now in looking back that I'm all about connecting people through play. It's what I've always loved to do. And so we looked at that and said, how can we help the world right now? And we realized all these companies were working remotely all of a sudden. So how can we connect the corporate teams who used to see each other every day? How can we help them connect through play? And so we created these virtual events, game shows, escape rooms, trivia nights, bingo, all sorts of things, and started selling that to companies. And we did over $1 million in revenue in under a year with that, which didn't cover it. I mean, it didn't, we still had lost a huge amount of our business, but it helped us cover a significant chunk of our overhead. It helped us survive. And now that piece of business, that corporate piece, is really thriving because we're still doing virtual events, and we're also doing in-person corporate events all over the world, and hybrid events for companies that have some people in person and some people working remotely. And now since writing the book, we're coaching people on integrating play into the workplace, integrating fun into the workplace on a day-to-day basis to sort of help improve workplace culture. So without those challenges of the pandemic, it's just really neat. If you told me in May of 2020 I'd be grateful for this, I would have told you you're insane. I will not be grateful for this. I am actually really grateful for the challenges because it's created all these new opportunities I never would have thought of.
I love that. And in the Venn diagram between new business and old, you found values, which was connecting people
Through play. Yeah. And the sports leagues, by the way, are now bigger and better than ever. Finally, we just had this spring and summer season that we're in right now, biggest season we've ever had. So that's really exciting.
So let's talk about the sports leagues, because I love understanding the path of deliberately creating a business that you were going to enjoy, creating a lifestyle business, meaning that it was about enjoyment and cash flow and lifestyle, not about accelerated growth, but then making a transition to aggressively grow it. And those are all, usually people do not do those things super deliberately. And they're kind of either pushed into one direction or another, or they stumble through it. What was it that made you change your mind and say, hey, now it's time to aggressively grow this?
That's a great question. So, well, from 96 to 2006, it was the lifestyle choice. From 2006 to 2016, I wanted to be more involved in my kids' lives. I had 3 young kids, so I wanted to be at their field trips and doing things with them. So I really didn't want to be in the office 40 hours a week, and was able to step back and let the business grow a little bit. But that's when I pursued the passion project of the community musical theater. And by 2016, I was bored with the business. It had been 20 years. And so I was debating selling it. I was thinking of maybe going into speaking and just doing more of that. But then I thought, I sat down, I literally went and sat on a dock for a day to think about what's the legacy that I want to leave? What brings me the
Mm,
most joy? And I realized what makes me happiest is when I'm driving down the street and I see a soccer game going on or an ultimate frisbee game going on. It's jam sports leagues being played, and I can say to my kids, "Hey, there's a jam softball game or a jam beach volleyball game." That's because of what the work we're doing. All those people connecting and playing and laughing and having fun is because of the work that me and my team are doing. So when I realized that's what brings me the most joy with my work, I thought I shouldn't sell this. I should grow this. And at the time, we had probably about 60,000 people playing annually. And so the goal, I wrote down the number 1 million, and that became the big vision was how can we get 1 million people playing every single year? And so that's what we're working towards. We got a ways to go yet, but we've got, we're close to a couple 100,000 people playing now in 15 different cities. And it brings me a lot of joy knowing how we're changing lives and impacting lives in such a positive way.
I like it. I always am curious when people give sort of their overarching driving force, where money fits into that picture. And I think the further along you are in business, the more likely you are to give an honest answer. I think it's very common, very common for newer entrepreneurs to just give a bullshit answer on that. And you know, at some point, the value proposition around money shifts. I mean, at each different stage, it shifts, right? The value that it actually provides to you. We have different relationships with money, but how relevant was the revenue side of it for you? Like, clearly you've got a connection and passion around growing it and exposure and sort of the legacy. How much of it was revenue?
When I first started, not at all. I was kind of creating a job for myself, honestly, in 1996. I was like, I didn't want to work for anyone else. I was just going to do this because it seemed fun. If you had told me that in 1996, you're going to be able to grow this business and have 40 full-time employees and 350 part-time employees and being, doing this much, this many millions in revenue, I would have been like, no way could we do that. Like, and it's crazy to me. We're going to have over 11,000 teams playing sports with us this year, plus the corporate side, right? So I didn't do it for money. I didn't do it for revenue. I did it for lifestyle. I did it for cash flow for sure. As I started to see like this was a cash cow business, that there's no accounts receivable in my business. You pay up front and then you get put on the schedule. If you haven't signed up and paid for your team's not going to be on the schedule. So there were no accounts receivable, which was great. And so it was a cash flow business that was great. And I was passionate about it. And it did allow me to have the freedom. But I also saved. I'm a saver. So I saved a lot over the years. And I have been able to build, a nest egg and have vacation property. And I'm really fortunate that way. And so I think when it became time in 2016, when I decided to really scale the business, that was just a new challenge for me. I got accused. Someone someone common friend of ours accused me of being. How did they say? They said you're like a stallion giving pony rides. They basically said you're being lazy because I was like my business is great, it's on cruise control, and they're like you are wasting. And I was like yeah, I probably need to challenge myself more. And so it became this challenge. And I didn't know anything about mergers and acquisitions. When I took a commerce degree, I almost failed finance. And the thought, even the words mergers and acquisitions brought back the same nauseous feeling I used to get in those finance classes. So I spent a year taking people out for lunch and out for coffee and saying, what does it mean? Like, how does this strategy work to do a roll up of my industry, which is a very fragmented industry? How does this work? And I didn't understand it at first. And then I was like, oh, now after talking to a lot of very smart people, much smarter than me, it was like, oh, I get it. And so that became this new challenge and it kind of just a new game. And what I love about the growing that we're doing now is I'm creating career opportunities for my staff, my team that didn't exist before. When we were just sort of growing lightly and organically, I couldn't create these great new job opportunities. I have a head of HR now, or people in culture. We've just rebranded the people and culture department. She started as an operations associate on our team, Narissa, and she has worked her way into this new, she leads a team of 4 people in people and culture, which had we not tried to scale the business, she would have had to leave by now. Like there wouldn't have been that upward mobility for her career objectives, and our head of finance is on track to become our CFO over the next couple of years. We have a fractional CFO right now, but Sandeep started in operations and he's working his way up. They've both gone back to school, which we've been able to help get them the education they need to sort of do this type of thing. Anyway, it's just really neat because we're scaling. We can create these opportunities for other people as well. So it's been really rewarding.
Growth was the theme through that I really liked. So figuring out a new game to play and figuring out how to grow through it and get better.
Yeah.
Also, I think it's very, very, very common for entrepreneurs to fail in finance and have no idea what M&A is about. And I'm, speaking from personal experience, as somebody that's heavily involved in the finance industry, there are also businesses wide, and to understand every element of it, it's not necessary to make money today. But certainly if you want to continue to grow, it is, as a human. You got into M&A to ultimately do a roll up to aggregate different, presumably aggregate a bunch of different sport and social clubs in different areas. What was the first? And also, what are the economics of a sport and social club? So can you break down kind of the business model briefly?
Sure. The first one was a very small operation in Toronto, right in our backyard, which was great.
So people pay, X per month to be a part of a league,
yeah.
or?
Okay, I see. So you can sign up either as an individual or as a full team or a group of individuals. Captains, on average, we're talking about $100 for a 10-week season. It's like, think of it as like $10 a week per person,
Mm-hmm.
And so if you, a team of 10 or 12, 14 people, depending on the sport, they're looking at $800 maybe for a team fee. It really depends on the sport and the time of year, because indoor soccer, you could be playing the exact same soccer, exact same sort of team of people playing soccer outdoor might cost $800 for 12 weeks. And then indoor, it might cost $1,500 because it's the permit fee, the fee of playing on an indoor facility. We basically that's the variable costs involved, is the staffing and the facility costs. And then, equipment, insurance. And then we've got lots of overhead with our full-time, salaries and office rent and that kind of stuff, and automobiles and all that good stuff, liability insurance. But anyway, so that basically you're looking at, $100 per person per season. And if you can get those people playing 4 seasons a year, and then multiple years, that's the idea, is to try and keep people around a long time. And we have a lot of people we've got people who signed up in 1996 and they're still playing. Someone sent me a picture the other day of her basketball team, and I was like, wait, are you still playing in our leagues? And she's like, yeah, I've been playing for 24 years. And I was like, what? Like, that is crazy to me. My body doesn't let me play ultimate frisbee and team sports anymore, unfortunately, but it makes me so happy. And we've got people who signed up in our leagues as like a 22-year-old, and now their kids are playing in our leagues, which also makes me really happy to know, like, we've become this multi-generational organization where people just keep playing. I mean, it's a really interesting business that way, in that you can't, like, we can modernize how we service, right? Like we now have a website. We didn't have a website in 1996. Like, everything is done online. You can see your schedule online. But you can't modernize playing, the actual physical playing itself. It's like, you either go play your game or you don't, or stay home and sit on the couch and play video games, right? Like, if you want to see people in real life and run around in real life, like, go play. We did do, for an April Fool's joke in 2021, we told everyone right after the pandemic that we had made the decision to take all of our sports leagues to the metaverse. Effective immediately, all of our games were moving into the metaverse. Well, Brad, the reactions were shocking. People were furious. It's hilarious. We're like, we were just joking. It was an April Fool's joke. We told people we'd be sending out their VR goggles and that they could stay home and play from home from the
Wow.
comfort of their home. And
I love it.
it was pretty funny.
Yeah, I feel like you're good for an April Fool's joke every year.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite day of the year.
So, okay, so the economics of this basically are you're renting a field, you're putting some officiant on the field with the team, and then there's insurance, and that's the basics. And then you have a bunch of teams in the league pay a team fee or they join individually. So that's the basics per league.
Yeah, we put together the schedules. Yeah, we put together the schedules for them. We keep them. They get their standings. We try and get partners on board so that they can get benefits from different partnerships, sampling opportunities, deals at different places, and then they maybe can go back to a sponsor bar afterwards to get a good deal on some drinks and beer like that. So we put together the league experience for them and provide them with their equipment, provide them with prizes, and track all the schedules and standings and handle any incidents that come up, which we'd love to see less of, but it's adult babysitting is what we're doing. Let's be honest.
Yes, indeed. I had a quick tangent here. I was part of a sport and social league in Ann Arbor, Michigan when I was 27, 28, maybe 29. And I was playing kickball and I slid into third base poorly, terrible slide, kind of half standing, half on the ground. And my right foot hit the bag and my foot stayed there, but my ankle kept going. And
oh gosh,
I will see if I'll try to get a video clip to insert here, but my foot, I refer to it as my foot coming off, and the whole foot, like I tore all the ligaments, stretched a tendon, and it was the most bizarre thing ever. And to this day, when I show people the picture, they do what you just did. They just freak out visually. You can see on their face. Yeah. But I can't imagine as a person orchestrating the league, having to deal with that stuff. How much of a consideration was injury or is injury for the sport and social clubs?
I mean, it's big. Our insurance is big. I mean, it's like it costs us a lot. We don't have a big insurance policy, but it's very expensive to insure. And ideally, people sign waivers, and for the most part, it hasn't been a massive issue. Touch wood. But that's the reality is injuries happen. And,
Yep.
When you sign up to play basketball or hockey or volleyball or soccer or kickball, you kind of got to know there's a chance I might hurt myself. I mean, let's be honest, there's a chance I might hurt myself walking on a sidewalk,
Yes.
right? But you kind of know chances are even higher if you're putting yourself on a sports field. So most people are pretty good. And we just try and be helpful to people. Sometimes someone will be like, I broke my finger, it's the first week of the games, can I get a refund? And we'll be like, hey, we'll try and sell your spot for you. If we have a wait list, we really try and help people. And we want people back. Like, we want people to keep playing. And so it's a tricky one. That is honestly, that's the worst case scenario of the business we deal with is people get hurt playing. But the joy that comes from people playing is far outweighs. I mean, we've had 4 players get our logo tattooed on their body because
Wow.
of how life-changing the experience is. I got an email from a woman who said, this was 6 or 7 years ago, she said, I just want to thank you for the work you and your team do. Your leagues saved my life. And she was expressing how she had explained that she'd been depressed. She didn't know anyone. She was new to the city. Someone asked her to join a company soccer team. She said yes, she had nothing to lose. And that she was like, life-changing experience, saved my life because I got new friends. I have a guy who talked to me. He wrote to me and told me that the leagues helped him lose 100 pounds because he always tried to go to the gym, but being signed up for teams, he knew he couldn't let his team down. He'd made this commitment to show up, and it really helped him stay on track. And over, I don't know, a year and a half, like he lost 100 pounds, and he's so grateful for, so it's really neat. not to mention the thousands of babies that have been born. I had a guy in 1997, a year after we'd started the leagues. He said, "Hey, Kristi, if you ever need a testimonial for your leagues, here's mine. Thanks to Jam Sports, I don't sleep alone anymore." And and then a number of years later, he sends me a photo. Every few years, he'll send me a photo of his family. He's got 3 kids. He and Martha got married, had 3 kids, and like they thank. And there are thousands of people like that that have met their match and started families. And so that's a really, it outweighs the injuries for sure.
All right, I'm signing up. I'm sold. So back to the economics and growth of it. You dove into acquisitions. You did 9 in pretty short order, I think is what you said. What were the economics of that? Was there a formula that you were following to do this? Did you spread out geographically? Was it a close geographic area, or was it all over the place? How did you approach that?
I'm just trying to think. We've stayed pretty close to home. We're now in, one I did short, I can't remember which number it was, probably about the third one we did was in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, about an hour outside of Toronto. And after we got the yes on that one, I reached out to the other 2 leagues that were in that city and told them, we're buying this company. Would you be interested in selling? And got yeses from both of them very quickly, because I think they recognized we were pretty big and we did fair deals. Every single one of them was really happy with the deal. Like any of the acquisitions we've done, if you go to the prior owner, they would tell you, yeah, it was a really fair deal, and everyone feels happy with the result of it. So it's been a really good. We really care and want to make our customers first and foremost. We want to make sure they're happy, and then our team. So when we do an acquisition, we always we're not looking to go in and clean house. We're looking to go in and keep key teammates. We've only ever had to let one person go, and that was after 6 months, because they just weren't a good fit. Otherwise, we really tried to keep teams on board if we need them on the ground, or get them on the team in a different way. And so we've tried to make it a really positive experience. So yeah, that Kitchener-Waterloo one was really interesting. To be able to do 3 within a year and a half, all in one city, was great. And then we rolled them all together and rebranded that, right away. We've done some in Michigan, Winnipeg, so we're in Manitoba. And then we've got a bunch in the works right now in a variety of different places, Canada and the US at the moment.
So if you're keeping all the team members, and you said you bought 3 and then rebranded them as a group, there's no additional economic benefit to the aggregation of them. So what's the game plan there? And normally, for context for anybody listening, in a roll up in software, for example, or some other industries, even if you don't get economic benefit, a larger company is worth more. You get a higher multiple if you're going to sell the larger company, right?
Yeah. So that's the goal.
Got it.
That is the goal for sure. But now, maybe that was misleading to say. We've had some people leave and not replace them. Like I remember one deal we were doing 2 weeks before closing, the owner panicked and he said, "My head of customer service just quit." And I said, "Don't worry about it. That's okay. We got this." And we never replaced that individual because I knew we didn't need to. So there have been people who have left and we haven't replaced after a period of time where, I'm just talking like initially, our initial 6-month window, we're not looking to go in and fire everyone. And that's not, that's not who we are. We're looking to see, is this teammate great? Will they add value to the business or not? There are synergies for sure from our head office. We've sort of reorganized the way we operate now. So it doesn't matter if you sit in Michigan or Sudbury or Toronto, you can be on the customer service team or the operations team. There are things that people can be doing, or the marketing team. I mean, our head of social media lives in Vancouver, and we don't run leagues in Vancouver. Our head of sales lives in Paris, France. So, we've got people all over the place. You don't have to be in those cities. So we've reorganized. So there's head office services now. There's the, HR, IT, marketing, ops, and customer service all. So we do need some boots on the ground in each city, but they don't necessarily need to be full time. So we just we're trying to, I think, Brad, the idea is we are looking for economies of scale without being the bad guys. Like we want, it's not at all costs, if that makes sense. Like we'll get those economies of scale in time, but we're not looking to go in and clear house and, be the evil big conglomerate. Like that's not what we want. So every case has been unique. Every acquisition we've done has been completely different. It's actually quite shocking to me how these businesses, what would seem to be quite a simple business, every single one that we've done operates very differently. Everyone's got their own special little twist, their own secret sauce on how they do things. And then customers care about those little, they get used to things, right? If you were playing in Ann Arbor and Ann Arbor did, their prizes were this, well, that's not what we do for prizes. So what are we going to do? Right. So it's been a lot of learning along the way. And we've learned certain things are non-negotiable. Like we've learned that we need people on our platform because that's the language we're speaking. But then there's certain things that aren't, one organization that we acquired ran on 6 seasons a year. Well, most of our leagues are 4 seasons a year, but we've been able to kind of maintain that 6 season a year for that region that really wanted that. So it's just been picking and choosing where the battles are that we want to really fight.
So as you roll these up and make this bigger through acquisition, you're in sort of an interesting space. It's not like a full blown marketplace, but there are elements of this where the bigger the league is, probably the more attractive it is for other people to play. Or the more attention you get. What is it across all of the different groups that makes you as an entity better for the individuals, right? What's the benefit to the scale for both you and the other?
For our customers, it's that we're the big leagues of grassroots sports. So yeah, I mean, we are very professionally run organization. We get great venues because venue operators call us now when they have open space to say, can you guys use this time? And we'll be like, yes, we can. We are very good with relationships there are a lot of, private schools and colleges that never used to rent to anyone and now will give us like sole proprietorship. I see Get Shit Done on your water bottle. That is the name of my holding company. It's one of our core values.
I love it.
Is Get Shit Done. And it's the name of my holding company, GSD. Anyway, so we've built these relationships so we have great facilities that people wouldn't get otherwise. You compare the way Jam operates our sports leagues to sort of a volunteer organization, it's just night and day, right? Like the schedules aren't on time, or people would overpromise, underdeliver. Where we deliver what we promise is one of our core values. If we say we're going to get you your schedule on this time, you're going to have it by that date or 2 days earlier. Like it's not going to be after that. It's that kind of thing where we run professionally. We have customer service that are trained and responsive. You don't have to wait 5 days to get an answer to your questions. So that's the difference, I think, for players.
Better experience,
and
better product,
better experience, better experience, better facilities. Not necessarily the cheapest. We're not looking to be the cheapest, but we're also not necessarily looking to be the most expensive. We just, we know the margins we need to make to survive and cover the overhead. And so we want it to be a good all around. We're more about volume than like the more people we get playing, the better. And then for my team, as I said earlier, it's really great. Like when we did that first acquisition we did in Kitchener-Waterloo, this young man, Andrew, he was about 6 months in a part-time role with them. He just had his 5-year anniversary with Jam. He's grown a career with us. He's now got people that report to him. He would never have been able to do that if he had just stayed at that small organization. So that's where I love that we're creating career opportunities for people who share my passion for getting people playing and active. So it's been pretty cool that way.
I love that. And so ultimately having a better product, better service, better league is going to draw more people in general from a business perspective. So from a business perspective, you're going to grow as a product of just introducing a better product to the groups that you're purchasing. And then at the tail end, you've got a higher multiple if you want to sell the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think what ideally, I don't know exactly who our buyer is going to be yet. I think there are a lot of interesting potential people because it could be a PE but that's not, I'd rather work with a strategic where they want someone who wants to sort of have access to, hundreds of thousands, ideally 1 million people that are in this very defined demographic of sort of the 18 to 45-year-olds who has disposable income and is active and healthy and social it's a pretty special demographic. And so there's some interesting opportunity, I think, for a strategic to buy us one day, but we're not in a rush. I'm still having fun building and keeping people playing. So, we'll see what happens when the time is right.
So let's shift and talk about culture, because when we got into the pandemic, this is where conceptually worlds collide, right? You have a sport and social league. It's creating the environment for those players. And when you shift, you're confronted with a oh shit moment of the world is closing. Literally, our business can't operate the way that it has. And you are, one of millions of other entrepreneurs that are faced with this, except you have a true face-to-face situation, and you're trying to figure out how to shift it. And my perception of that when that was happening, and I was kind of watching elements of it happen because we're a part of some groups together. And so I saw some posts, and my perception was that your connection to culture was a part of how you navigated that. And you mentioned earlier that values, your own values and your core values are what allowed you to think through what that transition would look like. So tell me how you make that transition mentally, because it pays to play, is the name of your book. And we started before we pressed the record button. I was telling you that I don't have enough play in my business. And so I tend to try to find play externally, but I'd like to have them be aligned. So how did you come to the notion of, hey, I need to focus on helping companies play? And I know you hit on it briefly in the beginning, but can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So for the first 25 years of building the sports league side of the business, culture was always, it kind of, I guess it feels like it just kind of came naturally to me. I like to laugh. I mean, you know me, I like to laugh. I like to have fun. And so I just bring that's an energy I've always had with my team, a bit of a jokey energy. And we organize people playing sports. So we are great organizers. And so whenever we have any kind of culture, like team event with our own staff, we always have staffed sports teams playing in all of our leagues, obviously. But whenever we're doing like a social, someone was always organizing some silly game. There was always a creation of something fun and silly. And we also really cared about recognizing great things. Like in 2013, when we established our core values, I was like, we can't just have the core values written on the wall. We have to bring these to life. We started having core value awards back then. And the way we do our core value awards, it's playful and fun, and it doesn't cost anything. We do it once a month. And, so I started to realize we're really good at culture. Just the idea when someone hits their 1 year mark with us, I don't know how many years ago, like probably 20 years ago, we started, when you hit your 1 year mark, you got your veterans jersey. It was a hockey jersey with our logo on the front, your name on the back, and your number is the year you started with us. So my jersey is 96. Rob, my business partner, is a 99. And so everybody, when you become veteran status, you get your hockey jersey. These are the little things that we've been doing forever and not really thinking about. So when the pandemic hit, and we decided we had to try selling play to companies in a virtual way, I started to see the impact we were making on workplace culture. The comments, the testimonials that people were giving us were just like, wow, we had such a good time. It was such a fun laugh and blah, blah, blah. And our commitment to our customers was laughter is guaranteed. So we started calling them lunch and laughs instead of a lunch and learn. Hire Jam and we'll do a lunch and laugh for you, or a happy hour, or whatever. And so I started to see, wow. And I also, something that I should share, I'll be a little bit vulnerable here. When the pandemic hit in March of 2020, I said, stop everything. No spending money, we had to cut costs everywhere we could. So anyone who became a veteran between March of 2020 and I'm going to say probably September or August of 2020 didn't get a veterans jersey. We didn't do core value awards, even though core value awards didn't cost anything. We were in full survival mode. It was like we had gone to war and all we were doing was cutting costs. It was a very depressing time to be part of the team. And I remember the morale just was so in the tank. Like my team we're working virtually and people were depressed, and it was just not a fun place. I wasn't fun. And I realized in September of 2020, we've got to bring culture back. whoever didn't get their veterans jerseys, we got to spend the money and get the veterans jerseys. We're starting core value awards again. Like, why did we ever stop that? It was just so short minded. But I was in this survival mode. I actually think I talked to you during that time about, like, we were really struggling with, how are we going to get through this? Anyway, I noticed immediately when we brought some of those culture initiatives back, the change amongst my team, the mindset shift was astounding, the difference. So we realized we were really good at it. And then I started to realize, like, it's not just these having events, it's how we run our day to day. It's our huddle. We have a huddle that's 7 minutes every day at 1:00. It's the exact same agenda every day, but every day it's a different leader. And it doesn't matter if you're in the C-suite or you're a new intern on the team, you're in the schedule and you have to host huddle. And every huddle starts with good news, and it could be personal good news or a work win. Every huddle ends with leader's choice. Could be someone telling a joke. Whoever the huddle leader is, they get to choose how we wrap up huddle. And it might be, give me 15 push-ups, or I'm encouraging everyone to pick up the phone and call someone you haven't spoken to in 6 months, or post a picture in the banter channel of your favorite Halloween costume, whatever. Like, it could be totally random. And so these are just playful ways that we look at how we run our operations. And I've realized a lot of companies don't operate like this. They're not having fun with their work. And so that became the inspiration for the book, because I know that when we invest in play and fun with our teams, the morale, the engagement and energy level boosts, physical and mental health boosts, retention goes up, creativity and innovation increase. And when you've got a happier team of employees, you're going to have happier customers. We had 2 teammates, not 1, but 2, leave in 2020 and come back to us within 6 months because they left for more money and a better career opportunity. They came back for culture because they'd gone to a place where people didn't care about each other. No one was friends in the workplace. And there's a huge value in having friends in the workplace. It helps with retention. So it's this idea that invest a little bit of money in having some fun. Put play on your P&L. Like, I always joke that play begins with P&L. Get it on there. Get it on get it as a line item. And doing so will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in turnover costs, retention costs. So there's just so many benefits. As I was seeing it before my eyes, that I thought, this is the opportunity. I've got to write a book about this and help spread the message about this and teach people. Because I had so many people asking me, how do I do a core value award? How do I do, how do you run huddle? Like, all these types of questions that we can help people just add a little bit of laughter and fun into your day to day. We're not saying stop everything and go play a volleyball game all day. Like, you got to get your work done, but there are ways to do, have some fun along the way.
Well, I think that's the question for a lot of, call it A-type entrepreneurs, which is, how do you maintain the get shit done attitude and also have play integrated into it? And you've mentioned a couple little things. What are some others?
Do you have terms and conditions for anything that you do?
I'm in finance and banking. Our terms and conditions are out of fucking control.
Do you know how boring and painful that is for most people to have to read?
Yes.
So my terms and conditions, we sell events that could be $1,000 event, $50,000 event. When you read the terms and conditions for the event that you book, there's the legalese in blue, and then there's the jam English interpretation. And so it will be like, intellectual property, jam English. Don't tell Ruth in accounting about what we're talking about. Like, Ruth's the big gossip, like, it's just like jokey. It's a jokey interpretation. So people they skim it and they go, oh, this is what, like, I don't need to read all this, really, like, or maybe they do, but let the lawyers do that. But I believe there's ways, no matter what industry you're in. I talk about an accounting firm, Henderson Partners. They're a client of ours. And in my keynote, I talk about them. They have so much fun at their work, and they're doing accounting, but they've integrated play. They have book club, which we also do. They have they do a weekly huddle, and they do the superhero shout outs at their weekly huddle. And at the end of the month, whoever got the most superhero shout outs during the month wins the superhero cape. And they get the cape that goes to their desk, and they get $100 gift card because they were the superhero of the month. Like, that's an accounting firm. I mean, that's fun. It's silly. Yes. It's playful. But they're still getting their accounting work done. No one's stopping, no one's saying don't do your work, right? They do a lot of giving back, and for community, they do a lot of community work, and they do it in playful ways. And they do once a month social events, and they'll hire Jam to come and do a scavenger hunt for them or an amazing race for them. And they just find all sorts of ways to play. And so I've also recommended to people, like, every company, if you've got 10 or more people on your team, you gotta have a company sports team. There are adult recreational sports leagues in every city across North America. So sign up for kickball or volleyball, and if you're a big company, get multiple teams, make it optional, but tell your staff there's a team where we've got this Tuesday night dodgeball team or a Wednesday night kickball team or Monday night volleyball. Sign up and pay for it. Costs pennies. Get your company shirts on them so you're promoting your company name. What a great recruiting tool, to see people out having fun, and then they're getting to know each other as friends. For people that aren't super into sports, have a company choir. Have them get together once every 2 weeks for a singing rehearsal, or a company rock band, and put on a performance a couple times a year. Have a book club. There's just no end of ways to integrate play into the workplace, whether it's in your terms and conditions, how you send out your email communications, how you run your meetings, how you celebrate and recognize good work, or actual events. There's tons and tons of ways.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it feels like it's additional time, and that time takes away from something else. It takes away from the goal. And some of those examples are external, like a company sports team, which obviously is the through line with Jam. And then some of them are fully integrated, where it's like, hey, do all the same things you're doing, just have more fun doing them. Just make sure that you're infusing a twist to it, so it's not as boring.
Yeah. And Brad, how many people are on your team?
Low 20s.
And do you guys use Slack or Microsoft Teams?
Slack.
Do you have a shout out channel?
We have a shenanigans channel.
Okay, so that's like our banter channel. I would encourage you, when we get off this call, set up a shout out channel. It will take you 5 minutes. Everyone should do this. Have a shout out channel and just shout out someone today, and make a note in your to-do list to do this every second day. Shout someone out so it doesn't look too fake. Shout someone out for something great you saw going on, and encourage all your team to start using that shout out channel to shout out great things they're seeing. Ideally, keep it around your core values. Like, I want to shout out Steve for getting shit done. He did this. And it's one sentence. And you're going to start seeing, Sarah got a shout out from Ted for this thing she did that you had no idea, as the CEO of the company, you had no idea Sarah had done this, but Ted shouted her out. So then you can be like, hey, Sarah, that was amazing that you did that. Like, way to go. And people will give thumbs up. And it takes you like less than 1 minute to type a shout out to someone. The recognition that they feel, the power of that gratitude, first of all, that they're receiving and that you're giving, is incredibly powerful and will run ripples through your culture. And it costs you nothing, and it takes no time. So and it can be playful. Like, you could put up a funny meme with it when you post it. Like, and that's separate from your shenanigans channel. I think it's really important. We have a banter channel, which is our shenanigans channel. That's where, jokes and silly things are happening. And I would encourage every company should have that too, because it's fun. It's playful. So those are just a lot. There's so many little ways. The appendix of my book is filled with it, as is the playbook PDF, which, has a bunch of ideas, which I'm happy to share with all your listeners as well.
Yeah, I love that. Please do. Okay. Well, I think in general, we all want to have more fun doing what we're doing. And there are some people that do a great job at it and others that do not. But those are great ways to do that. You mentioned, before we close, I want to know kind of what the transitional product was. So you hit on it, and I kind of pulled you away from it because I wanted the rest of the story with the sport and social leagues. But through the pandemic, you started working with companies to help them infuse some play into their business. What is the product offering, and who's your target market for that? What are you delivering there that you delivered through the pandemic to kind of keep the business alive?
Yeah, through the pandemic, it was just virtual events. So escape rooms, scavenger hunts, game shows, trivia. It was a bunch of different games that we created, and we hired hosts sitting around the world to run all virtual events. Now we're still doing virtual events because there are companies who have different offices in, people sitting in different cities. What a great way. You don't have to get on an airplane to have some laughs with your teammates, and having laughs with your teammates is really powerful to improve your culture if you get to know people as friends. So having a lunch and laugh once a month, the first Wednesday of every month, we have companies that'll run a lunch and laugh or a happy hour. So we're still doing virtual, but now that has since transitioned. Now that we can gather in person again, we're also doing hybrid events and in-person events. So field days and office Olympics and amazing races and scavenger hunts. And then we also run sports tournaments for companies, private sports leagues for companies. So the target market would be, and then now we've just recently started doing the culture coaching, helping companies integrate all these different playful ideas into their workplace so that they can really understand it's not just about once a year company event or a once a month company event. It's about having fun all the time and having little playful tactics throughout the day to day. So we're coaching on that. And so I'd say the target market for us would be any business, like CEOs, business leaders, people in culture, HR leaders, people that care about their people and want to have a fun workplace culture, want to improve engagement, want to improve burnout, like lessen burnout, want to improve retention. Those are the target. So really any size organization. I'd say small to like mid size is a really great, 30 to probably 20 to 500 people is a great sweet spot for us.
Yeah, I think that there are great lessons in your story for a lot of companies, even if you don't look at it from, I think there are lessons around what you do in tough situations and play. And I could bullet point a lot of things, but one that sticks out to me is the opportunity to add a product line. So you didn't need to have you did need the pandemic to be the catalyst for this, but this additional service offering is in line with what you were already doing. You just didn't take the time to focus on it or weren't forced to until then, but certainly you could have. And it's obviously still very relevant.
Yeah, we actually had just hired someone to build our corporate events division, but it was in my mind, it was going to be in-person events. And then the pandemic hit about a month after, and we were like, oh my gosh. And we hadn't thought about virtual events. That honestly came from some people in our industry who were doing it in California. And I was like, this is really smart. And they were kind enough to share some ideas with me, and we started trying it, and we were like, okay, I think we can sell this to companies. We were doing it initially for our players. We were running bingo nights and trivia nights for people that played in our sports leagues just to help them have an outlet to play and laugh. And then we were like, hey, maybe we should be doing this for companies. So it did. Yeah, it's been one of those things that the pandemic is something I am actually very grateful that happened. That we learned a lot. We've grown a lot because of it. I wouldn't have ever thought we'd be grateful for this, but I truly am. And Jam, the brand of Jam also came out of the pandemic. We rebranded in 2021. Clay Ebert helped me come up with the name Jam, which I love, sort of like BAM. And it's fun and playful, and it speaks to both the corporate side as well as the sports league side. So it's been fun to have that come out of it too. A lot of good things have come. And the book, I would have never written the book. And now I'm doing a ton of speaking. All of that is because of what we've been through. So definitely grateful for what we've had to work for and grow through.
If people want to find out more about that, about the sport and social leagues, but more importantly about you or Jam in general, where do you want to send them?
Well, there's two things. I would say jamgroup.com, jamgroup.com is where all of our corporate events and our sports leagues and the corporate events are. That's sort of the landing page. And then if people would like to figure out ways, if they're sort of sitting there going, I don't know how to integrate play into the workplace, if you go to, give you a landing page, Brad, that people can use. It's Christie Herold, KristiHerold, KristiHerold.com/Beyond a Million 25. That will take people to a landing page that will give them a copy of the 20-page. It's a 10-page PDF called the Playbook, and it's 10 ways to integrate play into the workplace. And inside it is a 25% savings opportunity if they would like to try a virtual event, a lunch and laugh with their team, or they want to sign up a sports team in one of the cities that we're offering our sports leagues in, or do a company event. We're happy to help them with that and give them a 25% savings. So KristiHerold.com/Beyond a Million 25.
I love it. Kristi, thank you so much for the time. It's always good to talk to you.
Thanks, Brad. It was great to see you. I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. I need your help. There are 3 places you can find Beyond a Million: the podcast itself, beyondamillion.com, which has some cool free resources, including a free course. And we finally launched the Beyond a Million YouTube channel. I would love it if you would go there and subscribe. And if you don't want to, you still would probably enjoy seeing the visual content. Check it out, youtube.com/@ Beyond a Million.